now it's time for John's topic of our show. Handsome John, talk to us about what Microsoft's doing with dead people. What?
The scariest thing imagined for mental health that you can come up with.
They should talk to Apple. Apple's creating dead people, and then Microsoft's doing something with them.
Making sure that Microsoft, actually recreates in real life a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, I expected seriously for this to be Apple, or I'm sorry, Amazon before Microsoft. Yeah. To be fair, this feels like it's just weird saying it, but Microsoft has filed a patent that would allow the company to digitally revive deceased loved ones using chatbots and individual information. So essentially, they're gonna take who you are and manipulate you to basically, I forget what the application was where they were able to take your face and put it on someone else, and they could force them to talk through computer generation and whatnot. But it's going to be an AI-based chatbot. Includes their images, voice data, social media posts, electronic messages, and other personal information. So they're going to have the personality of the person that you're talking to. I mean, can you just see the mental churning problem of this as it starts? I mean, you have people who already have issues with people who have died.
Yes. If Netflix made it an entire show, made an episode in an entire show around this, you shouldn't touch it.
I mean, we've all learned that sci-fi pretty much becomes true eventually. I'm waiting for Futurama to really take hold because it's coming.
The Black Mirror episode is called Be Right Back.
Yeah.
And it stars Charlie Booker and, Haley Atwell and Domhnall Gleeson, who you will have known, like, as soon as you look at it. Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter, and Domhnall Gleeson's been in a lot of stuff. I can't really pick him out right now. But
the thing that's scary about this more than anything else is the fact that it's going to be like this immersive experience that can transcend time as well. So these bots are having conversations through voice or text chats or whatever, and they can even take their vernacular of what they usually use in language and use that in those texts. So if your grandpa never used the word you, they used y'all, then that's what they're going to use. They're going to learn who they are in order to make this person essentially. And then they're also going to be making like 2D, 3D images of these people. So you're going to be actually having conversations with an individual that you think is your grandpa, like, or whatever. Like I have a thing because my grandfather died a few years back. So that's why I'm thinking about that. But people have a hard time moving on when it comes to death. And here you are putting something in front of them where they can literally have conversations with up-to-date information about what's happened in the world or with your friends or with the family based on social media posts involving you and your family and how they were connected and everything else. Do you feel the creepiness from this? Like in your soul, this is going to be a real up thing. Like Microsoft, if you have a soul, do not do this. Throw it away.
We're just one step away from the robot that, then looks like, your deceased loved one and acts like
this is better than that because they don't have to maintenance it. Like it's just a program. But I mean, people who already are on the fringe or dealing with things, they're going to be talking with these people. I mean, you're going to be like, what was the last conversation you had with your grandfather? Oh, I can't remember because I'm still talking to him. Like,
see, I want to reference back to an article that we had talked about before where the whole combined photo thing, where if you did a ton of web scraping the company that did a ton of web scraping pulled a bunch of photos, profile information with names and whatnot. So if police wanted to, look up somebody, they could, just based on a really rough image of them. Microsoft had said, as well as Google and Facebook had said, that it was ethically irresponsible for them to do so they didn't do it. But here we are with King Microsoft.
Welcome to 2021.
Like, this is 2020 part 2. This is not 2021. Like, no. Like, if we're talking about implementing something like this, first off, implementing something like this for people, because it's targeted at people who have deceased loved ones who are grieving. It is not healthy for that.
No,
maybe that's opinion, but to me,
that's not opinion.
I'm pretty sure that's common knowledge.
Absolutely correct.
But that's not healthy. Like you have to eventually move on from that, and latching to something like that is not healthy.
This is how you end up downloading your brain to a computer. It's coming.
I thought it was funny that you literally used the word transcend earlier to reference the movie Transcendence.
Yeah, Transcendence.
You know, about you know, having your consciousness available, you know, through some machine learning or, you know, internet based thing that, you know, I don't know, it's just next level of what we're trying to do.
I think it's no like surprise to anybody who watches the show, to you too, that, you know, I don't necessarily have a religious connotation. I do have a spiritual connotation, which is weird to say because I'm not a hippie.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there is some reverence for the dead. Now, I'm not talking about sugarcoating. You know, my brother passed away over 10 years ago, and I will still to this day tell you that as much as I loved him to death, he had his flaws just like anybody else. And anybody who tries to rewrite history with these nice memories and without, you know, including the grit, I tell them they're wrong often.
Well, it's not about being wrong as much as it is you want to remember the good stuff. Like, you don't want to harp on the bad stuff.
There's a difference between remembering the good stuff and trying to rewrite what
and I agree with that hands down.
Yeah.
My grandfather was no angel.
Yeah. Nobody. I mean, we're all human. Like, we all have our flaws and we've all done bad things as well as good things. But my point being, like, there is a level of, like, you have to let go, right? We've talked about it. It is healthy. Like, that is a response we all deal with.
Coping with death is a part of life.
The grieving process is natural. Like, that you're supposed to go through that process.
And you can tackle that in many ways. You know, recently my wife and I have really clung to the movie Coco, because the idea of Coco is that this kid goes into the afterlife, what, you know, is traditionally the Mexican belief of afterlife, to see family and figure out stuff going on with his family.
Good movie.
It is a great movie, but it's also like a very optimistic look at what happens to people when they leave. And it's not like we're sitting here consciously thinking that's what happens, but it's a nice thought to think of. It helps us kind of cope with the fact that people are gone in our life. Like, those are the kinds of steps you should be taking. It's the reality that they are gone. And the hope is that they're happier, or something has happened in the extent that they're no longer suffering, whether they're actively happy in a way that we don't understand, or their suffering they had here is now over, whatever the case may be. It helps you feel better as a person,
and hence the phrase of "they're in a better place now," which does also have a religious
term I can think of. Is that this makes it feel perverted? It actually, to me, it perverts the memory of your loved one, or, you know, whoever this person may be, and it's not that it's an untrue thing, but it didn't actually happen, and it's almost making a fantasy world out of a dead person, and it just doesn't feel good.
Well, not only that, you're living in the delusion that they're still here in some form or another. They're not.
Yeah, like, you're honestly selling a delusion at this point in time. Are you going to be responsible for this person's mental health after you get done fucking their brain with a screwdriver? What happens to the
first person who fucking kills themselves because of the fact they realized that the one line was wrong on the chatbot? Is Microsoft liable for that? They should be. Like,
no,
you're literally peddling the situation in which you're trying to give them this delusion.
Obviously,
like,
it's going to be put with a disclaimer. This is not a real person. This is I mean, it could technically, I mean, if used in the right way, it could probably be used in a therapeutic manner, but this is not how that's going to be handled.
See, this is the problem I have, though, is that Microsoft's going to claim zero responsibility for anything that comes from it, because it's going to be machine learning. It's going to be based application based on the input from your loved one's social media input. Sure, there's a disclaimer, but okay, you know, full spoiler alert. Do we all remember how that Black Mirror episode ended?
I didn't watch it.
Where she freaked out and said that wasn't him. I'm going to throw the spoiler alert thing up, but like it's not him, that like that's not who he was, you know, that kind of thing. And she came to that realization. The problem is that she had to go through all kinds of psychotic episodes in between there to get to that point. So it was, the problem is that for somebody who already would be in a more mentally unstable position from there, Microsoft is going to require that you sign a disclaimer that they are not responsible for anything past that point. Yes, ethically they should be, but legally they're not going to be.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
I could see, like, you know, past issues, like say your father dies and you were never able to resolve or tell him, you know, what you felt, why you were angry, why you're sad. I could see that being therapeutic in that sense. but it being used as a tool by like an oversight and through multiple studies through psychologists and medical universities, so this can technically be used as a helpful tool. I could see that being a thing later on down the road. Again, it's a muddied water. That is best case scenario of this.
The problem I see with it though is like
it's looking for closure for someone who never got it. Say someone died in an accident, died suddenly.
We have techniques for that now, though. Like we have therapies for that. We have ways to handle that now that don't include some way of like trying to revive this person even digitally. They're not all effective, and it takes time from personal use and people being involved in it.
And there's always new techniques coming by to help people. I mean, not everything is going to stay the same either.
Well, but the problem with this one is that, just like you said, it perverts a lot of what I would argue, hold reverent. At the same time, also possibly putting people in a position where they're reliant upon it.
I think it's going to be, like I said, in order not to make it perverted, doing studies and having professionals looking at this, saying whether this is going to be a healthy option for therapy in this manner, supervised, the whole thing would be supervised. Like there's no way you could just let it go.
I think say don't even fucking open the door. That's Pandora's box in my opinion.
And I kind of agree with that, but like I said, that was best case scenario for me. That's the way I looked at if this was no matter what, we don't have a choice whether this comes to market or not. If I was to help affect like its limitation, that would be the direction I would go, because I think that would be the best possible outcome.
I think limiting this to the point that it would be a tool for professional diagnosis, I think that might be okay. I think that would be something that, like, okay, Microsoft offers this to psychologists, psychiatrists, who deal specifically with people who have loss of family members like that, and maybe need something they need to get out in an avenue that feels more real for therapeutic purposes,
like screaming at a picture or a mirror or whatever that you would be doing. I'm not saying
but
that
only
you would actually
if
even do this in therapy,
but only if it's validated first. Like it needs to be vetted before it's something that can just broadly go to market. Actually, let me rephrase that. It should never go broadly to market. It should go broadly to market in the therapeutic sense to licensed individuals only, or people who actually are there to help other individuals through this.
It's kind of like grenades. Only certain people can buy them.
I think the problem right now is that you're talking about a large corporation that makes its money off of selling software, asking them to not sell software, and
they don't have to. Totally, they don't.
They shouldn't. No, they should keep this patent and never do anything with it. They should sue anybody who attempts to do something with it, and they should just keep it in a fucking lock.
It's fine by me.
Personally,
well, okay.
That's what they should do.
That's what
Google, Microsoft, and Facebook should have done in the first place with the whole face search thing, but they never did either.
That entirely. Yeah, but that's my point. Is like there are things they should do morally for our society. They don't, because they care more about money. And I'm sorry, but this will sell. This will sell really well, because there's tons of people who don't know how to cope with death. And
there's a lot of people that also like living in fantasy worlds too. I mean, it's like, hey, I'm going to go talk to my friend. I'm chatting with him on, Skype or Zoom or whatever, and it's going to start really like seeping in, like to the point of this is reality. This is, a girlfriend that leaves you and you just can't handle it. I mean, there's just so many possibilities for this affecting
so much
mental health in a negative way. It's just, it's
there's so much room for irresponsibility here that this shouldn't exist.
Yeah, like John brought up the perfect point. Like this, like we're talking about dead people, but this truly could be used for fucking anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally at any point in time, you just go, well, this is a really bad breakup, but I don't want to lose her, him, whomever. So I'm just going to create this bot. And I'm just going to go home and I'm just going to talk to him. And that's going to be the person I talk to all the time.
I wonder if they're going to be able to make these bots strip naked. This just got really weird.
We're just talking about chat here, bud. We're like, well, hold on.
Oh no, this is video, 3D rendering models.
Yeah, they're creating models and everything.
So
I
get to
this, like them taking that information to ingest and then turning it.
It's worse than what you thought. It's worse than what you thought.
I hate quotes.
Okay, so we're literally one step away from having a fucking Android that can do this kind of thing.
Correct.
Yeah. So
I hurt. I hurt so much for where we're going to go from here.
It's terrifying. I
Next
I
thing I know,
understand.
next thing I know, I'm gonna look in the fucking mirror and I'm gonna see like a little point rating that pops up next to
Yep.
my head and my name. You know, of
What a
like
great
what my
episode of Black Mirror that was.
what my social point value is. Like, oh my god.
It's it's a fantasy that I think a lot of people who have lost have, right? Like there's always that, like, I would love to have that conversation. I'd love to talk to him again. But I think the conceit there is that you want to talk to the person, not an amalgamation of that person.
But that's the
Um,
that's the eventuality of the episode. Again, spoiler alert,
Yeah.
I guess.
Like
But
once again, like you can't.
it's not actually
can't.
that person. It will never actually be that person ever again.
Correct.
Unfortunately, that is the fault of life, is that death is an inevitability there.
Yes. I totally sympathize with anybody going through some traumatic major loss. I've been there. We've all been there to some degree or another. We understand.
100%.
But this is not a solution. Can it possibly be used for a tool? I think there's a realm there, but I also think that this is a little bit more
Diagnosed only.
yeah, this is a little bit more dangerous than I would be willing to go,
Like-
because I look at like prescription drugs. We have prescription drugs that are supposed to be used as tools in specific situations. And what has happened is that capitalism has gotten in the way. People want to make money. So they're overprescribing opioids to the point where they want to make billions of dollars, and people are in pain because of it. That's exactly where I see this going. Personally, not to go on a super negative tirade here. I've been very negative about this, but that's because I have very strong feelings about this technology.
I'm with you in the sense that I don't think this should really exist. I think we're crossing a line here that crossing both an ethical and personal line that should not be crossed here.
Yeah.
You know, when you're talking about having some sort of accurate reenactment of who that person is, then we're getting so. I don't know if this is really a topic that we brought up.
Grande stalker come in and make Ariana Grande in this, 3D AI capturing,
and like literally anybody,
intensifying the stalker. But
so
no, I talked to you last night. We were supposed to meet together, and we were gonna bang till the freaking sun rises, right?
But
yeah, we're gonna do that.
Even worse, somebody makes a bot of somebody else and then uses that as a prank or a way to like get at some, like it's.
So I was thinking along the lines of deep fakes. So deep fakes are already a problem as they are right now, because you can doctor a video to do pretty much anything if you have good enough AI software to make it happen. But
Jordan Peele had that great deep fake of him as Obama, where he was talking over the footage of Obama, and then it cuts to him, where it just proves like you just can't believe everything on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, if you really want a good one to look at too, Linus Tech Tips did a video about what they would do as quote unquote, like what they would do as a contingency if Linus ever died. And Linus, like one of the first in the first 5 minutes, he's like, well, I mean, what would happen if I was walking to work one day and suddenly like I got hit by a bus? Well, they showed what a deep fake looked like of him doing a tech review. They had a guy who had an actor who had a similar build to him, similar facial appearance to some extent. And then they threw a deep fake of every Linus Tech Tips video that he'd ever done, compiled together to actually recreate his face in different lighting situations and something to recreate his voice in different vocal situations.
The Oprah show would never die.
It was moderately convincing. Like it was actually not bad, but you could definitely tell something was off.
Hell, the Insomniac games changed the face of Peter Parker in their Spider-Man games to better match the actual actor who portrays him in the motion capture and the voices. Like it's something that people are definitely leaning towards, and that technology is being used in a very good way. I would argue, like it's being used for entertainment and fun things. We saw it with Star Wars, right? Carrie Fisher passed away, but they were able to find a way to include like Princess Leia and Rogue One as a young person. Spoilers, you can throw up the spoiler thing for Mandalorian right now, the last episode of season 2, but like young Luke comes on the stage. Like they're finding ways to make it work in entertainment and be useful and interesting and fun, and I think that technology has a space for it, but it's all of it's dangerous. And the problem right now we have, I believe, as a species, and I don't mean that as like a US society, I don't mean that as like a first world society. I mean, as a whole, is that we have had a problem understanding what we should and shouldn't use for better or worse, right? And, nuclear power and the nuclear bomb is a great example of that. We really opened up Pandora's box, and it has benefited us, and it has done terrible things. Chernobyl, 5 Mile Island, like we've opened that door. Hiroshima, of course. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, the bomb dropping too, but like we've opened that door to all kinds of things. Yeah, it was a footnote. That was really bad. I'm sorry. It's not a footnote in history. That was terrible. But my point is, like, we've opened that door, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle after that. I'm mixing my metaphors. I don't care. Like, it's done. Like, nuclear power's out there, and that's a literal fear for nations that don't care what everyone else thinks. Right? We talk about North Korea all the time. If they ever get the ability to actively create nuclear warheads, where does that put us as a world? Not the United States, as a world. And in the same vein here, like, where does this put us 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now? You're talking about the ability to recreate someone. And we're talking about it in a very serious manner, because what Microsoft is describing is like half serious. But realistically, it's not the first step, it's the 10th step.
Right.
How do you protect yourself from misinformation? How do you protect your loved ones or anything? Like, what is the worst case scenario if, like, the people who go through kidnapping in Brazil of children to ransom them, they start using this digital footprint to find a way to where they can call phones and get a hold of kids and have them come to a certain location so they can get them? Like,
hey, it's your friend. Hey, it's your friend Timmy. Come meet me at this place.
Hey, it's Mom, I'm late to pick you up from school. Meet me here. Like,
yeah,
it is a very serious assertion, and it can go in a number of directions if you don't keep reins on it.
Right.
And that's the fear. Like, it's not just this one use case, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So I've ranted long enough. I apologize. I did not mean to get that serious about it, but it's a subject that terrifies me.
It's
just
it's scary going
Korea
forward.
Already has about 20 to 30 nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as far as
also
like,
terrifying,
as far as the example or the metaphor of nuclear weapons, or the simile of nuclear weapons and Chernobyl and whatnot, it is about the mismanagement or the mishandling.
Yeah.
If you manage it correctly, it is much less likely to be an issue. Restriction on it is going to be very heavy there, and if you allow for it only to be used in official capacities, I think this could have a place, but it does not need to be available to the broad market.
Yeah.
So, and I think that
it's
Microsoft
like, North Korea has nukes. Can they hit us with them? Yes, they can. Yeah, I looked that up too.
If they have mismanagement of them, which will come down to their leader, then yes, that could actually be a real problem. But if they're managed correctly, if the country is managed correctly, then they could actually benefit from being part of sort of like the mutually, or as bad as this sounds anyway, being part of the mutually assured destruction and the mad sort of pact anyway. That's part of this. It's
well, that's the path you go down, right? Like, again, you take the genie out of the bottle, then it becomes something that everyone can use to some degree. Then you have to reach that point. Like, that's the only conclusion. The other side of that coin is destruction, because it's either you all agree to not use it in order to keep sane and safe, or someone uses it and it all goes to hell.
Well, yeah, because the other side of this that could be terrifying too is Microsoft's now announced the fact that they have the capability of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
How long or what kind of effort would it really take for Facebook, who would be the worst company to probably have access to this kind of thing, but would also be the most viable company to have access to this kind of technology, or Google? I'm just saying, like,
no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
2 of the 3 companies that I would not want to have access to this period have the technological capability to do so. And if Microsoft, being what I would consider probably the middle of the 3, to have the technological capability to make that happen, I would say that the other 2 have a reasonable viability to make that happen within the next couple of years if they wanted to.
I agree.
One of which would be less than a year if they really pushed for it. But it's a scary thought to think that there would be even a market for this kind of thing.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, John?
Bad idea. Don't do it.
Don't fucking do it, Microsoft.
We don't talk about Fight Club, okay?
get the patent and destroy any
Lock it
possible
up.
usability of it.
Eloquent in its brevity. I love it. Please let us know what your thoughts are on this. I mean, I genuinely do want to hear anybody who thinks they have a solid use case. I'm not trying to be argumentative.
I
or
tried
fight.
to,
would
and you
love
shut
to
me
hear your
down and
thought
then started
process.
yelling at me. So I don't think that's a good idea.
It's what I do on a
either.
normal basis. I feel like that's like our relationship.
It is.
Just
It's
shut you down
abusive.
and yell.
I'm going to need
that's the
that
entire
technology for
podcast. I mean,
therapy
come on.
later on when I kill you.
He was asking the question
Just-
earlier why he has to be host. Well, it's because he does that kind of stuff.
Correct. That's absolutely right. You can let us know in the comment section that's directly on the American flag on John's head. And it's not really an American flag. I think it's an Oakley. Is that
It's
Oakley?
it's
Under
Under
Armour,
Armour.
and it's an American flag, yes. Colors.
Is it Under Armour? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, UA.
Why are you wearing an Under Armour hat?
Because I wear Under Armour.
You're better than that.
Well, I got it custom.
That's true. It does look good. I like it. Good. Time to move on to my topic.